Hey guys, Trey Santana here, real estate investor and coach, and I wanted to give you guys some more information and truth about wholesaling real estate. Okay, so here's the thing. Um, when you're first starting out as a wholesaler, you have no experience, you kind of need your hand held and things of that nature. A couple of things that you can do to expedite your learning curve is to just look around the MLS or Realtor.com or Zillow at single family homes that are selling and what types of single family homes they are. I know that might seem kind of weird for you to say, okay, what type of single family home, but here's the thing, right? If you live in a market where there's older properties, you're going to see maybe more bungalows, or maybe you're going to see more colonials, or just older style architecture type houses, right? Well, if you live in that market, but then you notice that those properties sit on the market longer than the newer ranch style properties that are like kind of boxy and cookie cutter, that lets you know that maybe on your in your list building, or when you're trying to reach out to agents or for sale by owners, you need to look at more ranch style properties. Um, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I can't tell you how many wholesalers reach out to me and they have like these properties that are like built in like the 1910s and the 1920s, when there's a whole stock of inventory in their market that was built after 1950, right? So, curb appeal. Curb appeal is kind of what I'm referring to, like the standard um, roof pitch, nothing funky, nothing old, right? Now, in certain markets, that's actually a good thing, right? There's certain districts and areas within a market where there's a lot of flippers looking for older properties because um, the area is being gentrified, and because the area is being gentrified, there's a lot of young homeowners, young families moving into that area. Maybe it's close to like a maybe startups as far as tech companies and things of that nature. So those are things that you have to look out for as a wholesaler. The other thing that I want to reach out to you about is knowing your numbers, right? So older properties are going to need more of a rehab. I cannot tell you how many wholesalers reach out and they have properties and they're asking like $120,000 for the property, and the property is worth, I don't know, like maybe 160, but this is like a 19, it could be like a 1950s house, but it's never been updated, right? Still the same linoleum, um, just everything is just completely dated. The bathrooms have like that nasty tile in it on the walls. Like nobody likes that crap, right? And so depending on the square footage, if it's like a 1,500 square foot, house, I'm assuming like a full rehab of like maybe 60 to $70,000 to update that property, especially if it needs a new roof. So what happens is just that at 120, if it's worth 160, maybe you did the 70% rule right? But 70% minus repairs would get you right around at least 40. And that's kind of where people are going to purchase the property for if it needs a ton of work. I'm just mentioning round numbers, right? If it needs 60 to $70,000 worth of work, maybe that's a deal that you don't need to step foot into yet until you can deal with the fact that um, you're actually ready to maybe take down the property yourself, or you're more experienced. I see a lot of wholesalers deal with a lot of nasty properties in the beginning, and I wanted to kind of shed some light on that. So there's a lot of gurus that'll tell you, hey, nasty, icky properties are the ones you need to go after. That is true. However, there's a lot of buyers right now that don't want to do that level of rehab. So you say, well, Trey, how can I get great deals and I'm not looking at properties that need an extreme rehab? Well, I'm going to say this. If you want to go after the deals that are icky and nasty and stuff like that, you can. Just understand that your buyer pool is going to be very slim for those types of deals. If you want to have more deals in your pipeline and you want to do more deals, what you have to do is the 120 may work at an ARV of 160 if you are trying to sell it to a buy and hold investor who cares more so about how fast he or she can get a tenant in the property, right? Can they just put in maybe 5 to 10 grand worth of cosmetic updates to that property in order for it to get rent ready? That's going to be the question that you need to answer when you're trying to wholesale real estate. I think that you need to be always assume, like, if you, even if you're trying to sell to a buy and hold investor, right, you still need to be at least locking the deals up for 65 to 70% in this market temperature. Reason being is because a lot of buy and hold investors realize that prices have gone up. So, like, just for round numbers, right, at 200,000, 70% of 200,000 is 140, right? A buy and hold investor, they only have to put in 10 grand, then they may purchase that property from you for 150 just because they plan on renting it out for $1,700-$1,800, right? So you have to pay attention to your rehab closely. Now, if you got more of a dumpy property, then you're going to have to lock that thing up for maybe 100 or something like that, just because even if it needs $30,000 or $40,000 worth of repairs, that 70% is still at 140. If it needs 30 grand worth of repairs, now we're at 110, you need to lock it up for 100, right? So these are the things that you have to pay attention to. So if you're doing like full rehab type stuff, that's cool. Like I said, you just have to understand that you're not going to have as many buyers for that. And mentioning buyers, no matter what type of properties you're going after, right? I want to stress to you that I don't want you guys just taking whatever property is given to you and getting excited about every single lead. You need to have some linearity to what you're doing. I'm pretty sure you're working at a job, or if you were working at a job, you understand the thought process of what you were doing, and there's a standard operating procedure, an SOP, that has to go along with that job. Set up an SOP in your business. So just say to yourself, okay, I'm only going after the dumpy properties, right? Because I came across a buyer who wants those types of properties and who will pay me X amount for them. So maybe you know a flipper who enjoys doing heavy rehabs, and they'll pay you like 50 to 60% of ARV. That's great, right? Maybe the incentive for you finding those dumpy properties is just that, maybe they have a square footage limit of like maybe 1,500 square feet. They won't go above that. But they don't care if it's like mold in it. They don't care if it's rat infested and things of that nature. But you've built rapport with a buyer who can then kind of take over once you get that contract, right? Long story short, if you're going to streamline the business, you need to know who your buyer is first. For buy and hold investors, there's a ton of buy and hold investors out there, right? Find out what they want. Find out. I talked about hedge funds before. Most of them are buy and hold investors. Make sure that when you are targeting properties that you are keeping what's important to them in mind, right? And guess what? If the property is in disrepair, is what I'm trying to say, then if your seller wants the buy and hold price, they can't get it. Move on to a new deal. There's a lot of newbies out there who fall in love with the fact that somebody just raised their hand and got excited, that somebody wants to do a deal with them. They only want to do a deal with you because they think that you're going to be the buyer of the property and that you're going to purchase the property for their price, right? So understand that people want their price. They're never going to stop wanting their price, but you got to go through as many leads as possible to find the people who want the same price that you can actually put under contract and sell the contract for. That's the key. So there's not going to be a lot of 50% sellers out there of ARV, right? 50% of ARV. There's going to be a lot of 80% sellers out there, and they're going to have 40 to 50% of ARV type houses. Your key is going to be, how many leads am I going through in order for me to identify the seller who's going to sell for my price? Now, that leads me to another point, talking about like novations and seller financing and stuff like that. So I haven't really spoken about that on this channel as much because I don't really do it. There's a lot of other guys out there who do novations and seller financing. I don't frown upon it at all. I think that it's an excellent technique for you to be able to do deals and to monetize leads. However, I do want to tell you some of the pitfalls of doing that um, if you're not ready. First and foremost, both of those techniques, they require you to have some money. Okay, when you're doing a novation, the definition of a novation is a contract substitution. So maybe you have a contract with your seller, and then if you do a novation, you have another document, right, that is going to allow you, that the seller is going to sign as well, that says that you plan on putting this property on the MLS and that a new buyer is going to come in with their contract, and that seller is going to sign that contract with the new buyer because you're kind of in control of that, right? But it's nothing else but a contract substitution. So if you don't have the money to put the necessary repairs into the property, then you know that you're just essentially going to be locking up a deal and then put it on the market. I mean, the seller can say, I could have did that myself, right? So you don't want to be that person who's trying to do novation deals and don't have any money to actually put into the properties that you're going to novate, right? Or the contracts you're going to novate. As far as seller financing, same deal, right? You need to have the $5,000 to $10,000 to actually put down, right, as a down payment and get that property in your name so that you can control the asset, right? Now, how far should you reach on the novation? I will tell you this. If you're going to pay the closing costs and if you're going to pay the realtor fees, whether you flat fee it or whether you list it with a traditional realtor because you know you're not one, you need to go 90% of ARV or as is value, but ARV minus repairs. Okay? So why am I saying that? Let's just say, same example, property is worth like 200,000. 90% of that is 180, right? Maybe the property needs, it's light, maybe needs 20 grand worth of work. You know, oh, also you need to build in a little spread for yourself, right? So maybe it needs 20 grand worth of work, right? And then maybe you need a $20,000 novation check or something like that. So maybe you're willing to put in 20,000. It kind of turns into a flip at this point. So 90% is 180 minus 20 is 160. Now you need to make another 20,000. You're down at 140, right? It's kind of like, you know, which one do you want to do? Do you want to wholesale it? Do you want to novate it? I guess it all comes down to how much your buyer or how many buyers in your market is willing to pay 140, right? If they're willing to pay or 150 for on a wholesale deal, right? If you don't have any buyers that you know of, then novation turns into a pretty key mechanism in order for you to monetize the lead. But I don't want you to just think that you can just novate everything. And the reason why is because sellers aren't stupid. And the first thing they're going to say is just that I could have listed it on the market. What are you doing, you doofus? Right? So that's the key. Also, seller financing, right? Seller financing to me is a better way of doing it because now you actually are on title and now you control the asset. You just have to make sure that you have a plan in place to either rent that property out, because sometimes if you're taking it over subject to the existing mortgage, right now you need to cash flow that mortgage in order for it not to be called due. If there is no mortgage on it and now the seller is going to be holding the note, you need to make sure that, again, that seller is going to be made whole at a later date. Because typically what you can do is you can go into that type of deal. Before I even go into that, you don't want to do an owner finance deal at like 100% of ARV. You just don't want to do it. I mean, you should be doing owner finance deals at like 80% of ARV. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And the reason why I'm saying that is because let's just say you're at 80% of ARV on an owner finance deal. At least that covers you when you try to refinance with the bank, right? So maybe the bank would refi you at 70 to 75%. Maybe only thing you had to come out of pocket was for, you know, I don't know, maybe 20 grand. Because 70% is again 140, right? 75% is like 150. So you maybe only have to put in like 10 grand in order for you to acquire this $200,000 asset, which that's really, really good. But don't reach too high on owner finance deals either, because the numbers won't make sense. The last thing I want to mention is working with buyers who have hard money. So these are flippers. They can be buy and hold investors, but typically they're flippers and they're concerned about their holding costs, okay? The thing that I want you to understand about hard money is that if you have buyers that are looking at your property and they're going to take out hard money, they're really paying attention to how long is it going to take in order for them to turn this property around. Now, that's their problem. That's not necessarily your problem, but it's very, very important if you're going to be working with that type of buyer for you to make sure that your ARV numbers are spot on, because they will most likely have to get an appraisal. Their lender's going to require that. Sometimes lenders require a survey, right? So if you're a newbie wholesaler, never agree to like just a 10-day due diligence period with your sellers. I would say that you should be locking up deals at a minimum of 30 days to sell, 21-day due diligence. And that's because you do intend on selling the contract. The way you're supposed to do business is that you already know who you're going to sell to. But if you don't know, it kind of buys you some time to find a new buyer and move on that way. So, take these and put these in your, these feathers in your cap, if you will, especially the curb appeal piece, because I cannot tell you how many properties have terrible curb appeal. You think you got something, but it's on a double yellow line. You think you got something, and it's like a makeshift house that they didn't pull any permits to make additions to. Nobody's going to want that crap. Like, nobody's going to want it because it doesn't have any flow. The curb appeal is just not there. Or maybe you got a property that, there's a hole in the backyard or something like that. I mean, I've seen it, right? It's completely gutted to the studs, stuff like that. If you see a property that's gutted to the studs, you need to automatically be thinking maybe even 50% minus repairs. Like that, they may get you like 10 grand on certain ARVs, but like, that's how you have to think, because you have to make money too. You're in the problem solving business, but I don't want you to make different mistakes because your seller that you're talking to wants too much money. Don't be afraid to pass on that deal, and don't be afraid to just keep on calling and doing whatever it takes to move on and try to get a better deal. Because trust me, once you start locking in your own flow, then the deal's going to come faster, because you understand what it takes. You're looking at, your KPIs, right? Your key performance indicators. You're going to be looking at those, and you're going to say, okay, it takes us 1,000 calls or 2,000 calls to get a deal or something like that. And that's how you scale. So hopefully this video helps you. Always you can ask and reach out to me. My go-getter deals have been getting taken down because maybe I've been showing too much information, but please visit my Facebook group, The Sauce, Wholesale Mentoring and Coaching. So with all of that being said, keep pushing, keep going, and whatever you do, don't quit. Peace.